Good day to all. My name is Jason Elyaguov, and I will be presenting our study, Adverse Events Associated with Male Urethral Sling Placements, a review of the Manufacturer and User Facility Device Experience Database, or MAUDE. I have no disclosures. As many of us providers can appreciate, male urinary incontinence can be a debilitating quality of life issue. The male urethral sling was designed and implanted more commonly for mild to moderate male incontinence and serves additional utility for patients with diminished dexterity. In the United States, 3 perineal male sling systems have been popularized: the AMS AdVance, the AMS InVance, and the Coloplast Virtue. The FDA has implemented MAUDE for patients and providers alike to report device problems. The database is searchable to the public with information dating back to the last 10 years. In light of recent scrutiny and regulatory changes in mesh therapy for female pelvic floor surgery, we decided to analyze adverse events reported for male slings and evaluate trends in salvage therapy. The database can be queried for event types classified as injury, malfunction, or death. We queried MAUDE from July 2009 to June 2019 for male urethral slings and generated 429 reports after exclusion criteria were applied. The AMS products were most represented, with AdVance accounting for 326 and InVance for 68. An additional 26 were unspecified. Only 9 total reports were seen for the Coloplast Virtue. Over the 10-year span, the most notable chronological finding was that 75% of the InVance reports were submitted prior to 2014. These findings are likely reflective of the InVance device no longer being available on the market by the latter half of the decade. Of the 429 adverse events we reviewed, no deaths were reported. The vast majority, or 406, were classified as injury. The remaining 23 were considered malfunctions. Most of the injuries presented themselves postoperatively, while most of the malfunctions were identified while deploying the sling. This table highlights the distribution of adverse events. Persistent or worsened incontinence was the most common incident reported at 209 of all injuries. Though we may not consider this a true injury, the reports consistently labeled it as such. The next most common adverse event was erosion, with 37 total reports. 17 of the erosions were seen in the urethra, 3 in the bladder, and 1 in the corpora cavernosa. The remaining 16 were unspecified. The most common intraoperative complication was actually described as a urethral bladder perforation. All of these occurred notably only during AdVance sling placements. Finally, 53 reports described an unspecified injury but detailed a surgical intervention requiring the implantation of a new device. The most common device malfunction involved either the sheath or plastic connector of the AdVance sling being inadvertently left in situ. Of the 409 injuries, 82% reported detailed a surgical intervention. Persistent incontinence was the most common reason why additional surgery was done, accounting for 54.6% of interventions. 275 reports identified an intervention to implant a new device, where only 7% placed new slings and 43% placed an artificial sphincter. The remaining 50% described an alternate continence device that was not specified. The majority of the 23 malfunctions did not require a new device, and ultimately 91 slings required removal, most commonly due to infection and erosion. With consideration, though the AdVance had the most events reported, it generally reflects trends in sling-type placements according to the literature. Persistent incontinence was the most common adverse event, which can be considered a marker of sling failure. And prior analyses show success rates generally inferior to the artificial sphincter. All perforation injuries, which may be considered most threatening, involve the AdVance, likely due to its trans-obturator approach. Malfunctions only accounted for 5.4%, usually due to user error, and the artificial sphincter was the most common second-line device placed, which has been shown to have considerable success if placed over original slings, correlating with most of the reports where sling removal was not described. Major limitations include lack of patient demographics, preoperative risk factors, as well as report inconsistencies. That said, MAUDE is a federal database available to the public, so theoretically any patient can view these reports and take them seriously. In conclusion, medical device safety for slings is a critical consideration, and MAUDE demonstrates an array of adverse events for 3 popularly fixed male slings. The majority of these events necessitated surgical intervention and implanting secondary continence devices. On behalf of my partners, we thank the International Continence Society for allowing us the opportunity to share our findings.